In this Blades of Fire video, we're going to be going behind the scenes with the creative director and CEO of Mercury Steam, Enric Alvarez, and we're going to be talking about how Blades of Fire came to be, what its inspiration was, and what some of the design choices in the game were inspired by. I really enjoyed Enric's thoughtful and intelligent answers during this interview, and I only gave him the interview questions about an hour before we did this interview, so a lot of these things he did not have time to prepare for, and it was just really refreshing to see someone who has so much knowledge and game development history come up with some of these answers that really laid bare some of the things that really made sense to me about Blades of Fire. Before we get into that though, a big shout out to Mercury Steam and 505 Games for sponsoring this video. If you somehow have not picked up the game yet and you want to do so, you can use our link below to support the channel. And there is also a demo available now too that you can go play and check the game out to see if you like it or not, and that link is also below. What was your inspiration or inspirations for Blades of Fire, as it seems kind of different from some of the other games that you guys have developed there in the past?
Yeah, it's certainly different. If you remember, a long time ago, before establishing Mercury Steam, it existed a small developer in Spain, which name was Rebel Act Studios, who developed a game that went out in 2001, and that game was Blade of Darkness in Europe and Severance, Blade of Darkness in the States. That game was our baptism of fire, if I can say that, for the founders of the studio. That game presented a sword and sorcery, dark game with a very demanding and punishing sword fighting combat, minimal storytelling, and very dark world. So that game was our first game as a team. Unfortunately, the studio closed its doors after that development. Partially thanks to that, we established Mercury Steam from the ashes of that other studio. That game left an imprint in our souls because it was the first one. It was very sad it didn't work, though the game gained some recognition as a cult game. Some even mention it as a predecessor of the Souls genre. So we knew that one day we wanted to go back. And that day arrived 4 years ago when we had the opportunity to present this game to 505. They liked it, and that's it. And here we are. In our hearts, this is an emotional sequel. It's not a proper sequel. It's not a real one. I mean, it has both games have nothing to do to each other. But in our hearts, it certainly is.
I think I understand what you mean. That makes perfect sense. How would you describe Blades of Fire in your own words to somebody who has maybe not heard of the game before? How would you describe it?
Have you ever heard, I don't know, but in Spanish there's a saying, the sharpest teeth are the hidden ones. Blades of Fire is a little bit like that. It seems like one thing on the surface, okay? You might think, okay, another Souls game or another God of War-like game or whatever you might think. But in reality, as soon as you put your hands on the game, you instantly realize this is its own thing. We didn't try to make the next in a Souls meaning or the next God of War. We honestly tried to make our own thing. And the game, through its mechanics, the core mechanics of the game are the combat, the forge, the exploration, and the story is going to tell you instantly as soon as you put your hands on it. Of course, it's a game that presents a dark fantasy world where steel is turned into stone, and you are the only person that can revert things by killing the queen, who is apparently the responsible for that spell. It's going to be a long journey. It's going to be a journey where you are going to traversing a whole world, a super varied world, and find a lot of enemies and characters and NPCs and different stuff. But it's above all a game, a story where you are going to forge your own weapons and establish an emotional link between those weapons and you. Differently from other games where you find all these resources scattered in the world, or you simply create them by using an interface and pressing a button. In Blades of Fire, you have to forge with your sweat your blades. You even are going to name them the way you want. And this will create an emotional bond between those tools and yourself. So I think that Blades of Fire, and you can try the demo. It's everywhere. It's free. It's going to give you something you haven't seen yet.
I do like the crafting mechanic in the game, I'm not going to lie. Durability is a mechanic that's sometimes not so well received by RPG players, but you kind of lean into it a little bit in Blades of Fire. How have you made it fun in this game compared to maybe some games out there that haven't?
Well, first of all, not forcing the player to do it every 5 minutes. That is the first rule. All right. Second is that repairing and rebuilding your weapons, you easily and quickly understand it forms part of the natural game loop. It's absolutely natural. Your weapons born, live, and die in your hands. Okay, so this is it's natural. It's you expect that from a game that is telling you that, hey, don't strike against this enemy because he's wearing an armor plate, and you're going to damage your valuous edge. And if you insist, you're not going to do that. You can break your weapon. I think breakage and forms part of the whole fantasy of the Forge. It wouldn't make any sense if we built a game based on a Forge system where everything is so physical, so tangible, and the variables you are handling are not intelligence or dexterity or whatever. You're handling the hardness of your edges, you're handling the length of your weapon, you're handling the the block in defense, the balance, the weight balance. Durability is naturally coming into the equation. Once you have that, once you're clear with that, as I said earlier, you need to be clear, you need to be sure that you can't ask people to go repairing or resharpening your weapons every 5 minutes. So it's all about balancing, the parameters and making everything, and that everything makes sense, and you are not asking the player to do that every 5 minutes. Also, and I'm spoiling a little bit the content of the game, you'll see that even your broken weapons make sense in this game. It's not about, okay, my weapon is broken, that's it, I can forget it or I can recycle it. No, I mean, there's more things you can do with your broken weapons, but I don't want to spoil anything to people that might want to play the game.
Okay, fair enough. Blades of Fire has a heavier focus on crafting than maybe some other similar games out there. What made you want to make this such a key element for the game? Like, I get that this game is maybe emotionally inspired by a previous game that you guys worked on, but the crafting element, where specifically did that come from?
Well, when I said earlier that we wanted to go back to the world of Severance, of course, I didn't mean that we wanted to do the same thing. 24 years have passed since then. Games have evolved enormously. So we knew we had to give the game something fresh for people. We didn't want, as I said earlier, that you play the next whatever. We wanted to say to people, hey, here's something new. So we felt that the simple fact of the steel turning into stone was very powerful, because it's a very simple thing. It's a very simple idea to understand. And it's an idea that drives both the gameplay and the storyline of this game. And I personally like when the seed of a game fuels all its possible aspects. It's not about thinking about the gameplay and then the story. You can do that, of course, or you can even have games without any story. But I strongly prefer when the central idea of a game fuels everything, the story, because then everything makes more sense. And this is the case for the Forge. I mean, of course, if you are a hero in a game where steel turns into stone, you are in trouble unless you can forge your own weapons. And it was this simple.
So Blades of Fire has a more of a tactical nature to it than many other action games because of the directional combat inputs, enemy weaknesses, and the extensive crafting system. How hard was it to develop combat using this system, especially when it has a somewhat Souls-like nature to it? What challenges did you face while creating this combat system?
Well, clearly the biggest challenge was to link the forge and the combat. And this is why we have this directional system. Because if we are asking you to build with such the detail we are doing it, a weapon, and we allow you to choose the steel for the edge, for the tip, the weight balance, we are even allowing you to decide the parry window in milliseconds. So if we go in this detail, it wouldn't make any sense that combat is only about mashing the button blindlessly against an enemy. So it made much more sense that we give you enemies that might wear different outfits, and you have to be careful about choosing the right tool for the right enemy, and only that for the right part of the enemy you want to deal damage. So I think that in that sense, the directional combat was a direct consequence of the forge and the fact that the steel turns into stone. Again, I mean, that simple concept, the gravitational center of everything, including the directional combat system.
These are some great answers. I mean, I'm starting to understand how it all flows together. Like, I wasn't expecting it to just make perfect sense to me, but now that you're saying these things, I'm like, oh yeah, why would you develop this detailed crafting system and then have a combat system that's so arcadey that it doesn't take advantage of it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Next question is, Aaron and Adso have this sort of cheeky relationship that's filled with humor that cuts through some of the seriousness of the game. What made you want to have them have this sort of dynamic in the game?
All right. We wanted for this story, I personally wanted regular people as stars. We wanted common people. Of course, common people in that fantasy world. To make players invested in that relationship, to make that relationship believable, it had to be written taking into consideration that in life you have drama and you have comedy in a natural way, and both happen almost at the same time, right? In every one of us lives, we have moments to hate someone, to love someone, to laugh with someone, etc. Kind of that, we didn't want an epic story about killing a queen and turning steel back from the spell she casted. We wanted that every meter that you advance in this game was as meaningful as possible from a character perspective. I mean, you can't have a good story without good characters. That's impossible. You can't do that. And good characters, with the premises I just said, need to be believable, need to be contradictory sometimes. They don't need to tell anything. Because in Aaron's case, for example, he is deliberately hiding to Adso the things he knows. Adso represents how we all are in our youth, Everything is black or white, everything is transparent, is clear. I know this, I know that. But we don't know nothing about the world where we live in reality. We only know it in theory. And Aaron is the other way around. He's a guy with a past. He's a guy who knows life, right? And he's a guy who cares about that. So because at the beginning of the game, he could have left him in his cabin. And instead of that, he insists in Adso going with him. Not because the kid is going to be of any help, but just because basic protection feelings. It's like, I can't leave this guy on his own here. So he has to go with me, at least as a chance to survive. And that was the key to create this dynamic between both. Sometimes it's, mysterious, other times it's hilarious, and other times it's dramatic, as it happens with each one of us in our common lives.
That was a really great explanation, because even during some of your darkest moments, there are still humor to be found. You know what I mean? You're trying to cheer yourself up or cheer someone up, and you can't. It's not completely devoid of drama and humor at the same time.
No. I mean, we also, from an overall perspective, we didn't want to make another gritty game, another, terrible game, another dark, gray, green. No, we wanted to confront a very, what is in reality a very sinister story, but in a lush and colorful world with colorful characters. Because I think that we people perceive things better when they contrast between themselves. So the flavor of things is more intense when there's a contrast, It's kind of a umami storytelling, if you allow me the expression.
Okay. That's a great way of putting it. I like that. That's good. You use your own in-house engine, if I'm not mistaken, and it seems to run really, really well from what I've played in the game so far. How has that contributed to the development of Blades of Fire?
It's been crucial to us. It's always crucial to us. We use our engine since the day we established the studio 23 years ago. And the reason is that an in-house engine is very much like a tailor-made suit, in the sense that you only develop the structures you need. And the engine is always at the service of the game you're doing, never the other way around. And also, since we have the, let's say, the bad habit of going crazy in every project, I mean, we are not making the same game for the last 23 years. If you think about Mercury Steam games, each one of them is totally different from the previous one. We like to adapt. We like to work with our technology to best fit the exact needs of our game, and don't even think about doing things that we know that they are not going to shine, or we don't need their shine. Not mentioning that using our own tech gives us total control on our technology. Any problem that might arise is instantly considered and instantly solved. And it's second nature. It's second nature to us. Among the people that established the studio, we have genius programmers who take care of this, and they get a lot of fun, because, I mean, people tend to label as something you paint, you write, or you model, but technology is also an art, and it can be as enjoyable as designing a character or writing a story. And we're here to enjoy what we do, honestly speaking. I mean, all of us.
That was a terrific answer. I actually never thought about it quite like that. It makes me wonder, why more studios out there don't do it. You know what I mean?
Because you don't always have the right people. I mean, it's not an easy endeavor to have your own technology. It's super hard. That's why it's so convenient using third-party engines, and sometimes might make the difference between making a game or not. It's total. I mean, it has nothing to do using a third-party engine versus having to build your own one. But in our case, as I said, we have genius people from day one. Our programmers are, honestly speaking, geniuses, and they can do it. So if you can do it, do it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Well, luckily you have genius programmers then.
Oh yeah.
I know it's still early, but the game has received relatively positive reviews, and I was just curious, what's next for Mercury Steam? What's next for Blades of Fire? Is it a DLCs, an expansion? What are you guys going to be working on next?
You know what? The right answer to your question is in the hands of people. If the game resonates, independently on reviews or whatever, I mean, we released the demo because we trust that there will be people out there that will enjoy, that will understand the proposal, that they will play it for what it is and not for what someone might think is, but take it for what it is and enjoy it. We are finding lots of people that is understanding the game and enjoying it so far. The game is released today, and of course, I mean, this is a business. So from a business perspective, it might sound harsh, but it's reality. It's real life. I mean, people has to be paid every month. So from that perspective, we'll see if the game resonates. If people loves it and want more, we'll sit down around this very same table, and we'll talk about it. But this is as far as I can go right now.
Fair enough. I didn't expect to get too much out of that answer, but sometimes I like to just see what I can get. You know what I mean? I like to just kind of go up to that line, walk it a little bit. Yeah, here's hoping Blades of Fire does well out there.
Hopefully.
So that wraps up our interview with the CEO and creative director of Blades of Fire, Enric Alvarez. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I think we're probably going to have more and more interviews on this channel as time goes by. They're getting more and more popular. So if you guys like what you see and you want to pick up Blades of Fire, you can use our link below to support the channel.